beat's gonna keep on playing, right? And you can either wait till the right time for you to step in and kind of get into the flow of things, or you can just step right in and kind of treat it like jazz. Because in jazz, like there's no real kind of common or like identifiable rhythm, but there is one, and it's all about how you dance around it or you play around it. So it's kind of like that. So even when you think you're offbeat, quote unquote offbeat, you're still in it if you just keep on going. You'll find your way through it,
That's beautiful.
That is.
I rate that. That's beautiful. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate you taking the time out to watch our episodes. We've noticed that like over 50% of the people that watch our YouTube episodes are not subscribed, according to the data analytics. So, yeah, man, if you are watching and you're enjoying the conversation, just click the subscribe button. It indicates to us that people are enjoying what we're doing, and it gives us that motivation to keep going forward. So, yeah, please do that if you're on it.
Suleiman,
Sadadeen,
how was your week, G?
my week was blessed, man. Yeah, it's been a cool week. Had an assignment, got that out of the way, thankfully. And yesterday I went to go and watch one of our close friends' performance. So he's a student. He's still at uni, the uni that we went to, and he's an actor as well. I said that, bro.
He's a thespian, bro.
That's it. I can't even pronounce that. I think he did one of his first ever performances as an actor in student theatre last year. Sadadeen and a few other people went to go watch him, and I wasn't able to make it, so I definitely wanted to be there this time round, and he did not disappoint. Like, honestly, it was such a special moment because he was performing a play called Blood Brothers. I don't know if you've come across it. It's quite well known in like the English drama GCSE curriculum. And yeah, man, it's when you see someone from a similar background to you, especially our types of background, do something like acting, do something like theatre, which isn't traditionally associated with, like, you don't really see many people, like young men from our backgrounds, kind of doing creative things like that. It's kind of paradigm shifting in many ways, man. It's like raw, like we're capable of so much, like we're capable of being and doing so much, and I was living vicariously through him, man. Honestly, it was beautiful to see. So big up Amin. He's also been on the podcast.
Big up.
Amazing episode. Make sure to check that out.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. What about you, sir?
Just on that, the idea of seeing someone do a thing that you may not have considered yourself doing, it makes me think about people that I've come across that are so themselves, that are so authentically themselves, that just experiencing that liberates you to try and be yourself a bit more. It gives you a lot of courage, and whenever I've come across those people, I try and hold on to them, because it's a breath of fresh air whenever you do come across them. My week, so basically, so I had a football match on the weekend, as you know, and this football match was something that there's been a lot of build up. So we were supposed to play this game before the winter break, but it got pushed back, delayed, and then basically our team was like very pumped up for it. And in this team, there are some players that have more responsibility, that have a lot of responsibility on them because they played in the team for longer, and because of their, I suppose, they played in the team for longer, so naturally there's a bit more responsibility, right? And I say this to say, I don't know how to like arrange these facts, but basically, I don't know. Okay, so we lost,
Reverse engineering. Go on.
So now that's not openly. Okay, so we lost, but the reason it stuck out to me is that I've never felt as deflated from a loss of a football match for ages. I'm quite a stoic footballer here, not in real life, but
really
but I'm just like, alright, cool, game's done, like next game on or whatever. And also, it was I think growing up, definitely I was someone that just cared about my performance. Like, as long as my performance was good and I did my part, I didn't really care how, like, because that's kind of the only thing that I was like, I can improve on that or work on that. And I think definitely with this team, it's a bit more of the team is a bit more at the forefront of your mind. Maybe it's because of the people within it, or like the allegiance you have, or like the fact that we're such close friends outside of football. But anyway, this loss deflated me a lot, and it just made me think about the idea of like letting people down, because that is the reason why I felt so deflated, because of that responsibility. I felt like as I was going home, like, man, I let my team down proper, because there was a lot of big calls that had to be made, and we'd had like a Zoom call the day before, and so we were like, this is proper, bro. Like we had like, okay, cool. So who's gonna play where? And then there was like a couple of positions where it was hotly contested, and then the people in the Zoom call had to kind of make cases for every player. And so I was like, nah, I felt I made a robust case for one player in it. And I was like, boom, no, I think so and so should play because of X, Y, Z. Like, and it just, at the moment, it was like, yes, this is fantastic. This is the team that I think will win this game 100%. And then it kind of didn't go to plan. And I remember being on the pitch and thinking, what have I done? Like this, if the other player was on and we did what the other people said, then yeah, I think we may have had a better chance. But there was a lot of, I don't want to.
Was it luck or randomness, or in retrospect, was there actually things you should have predicted that took place?
Basically, no, it wasn't luck. It wasn't luck, and it was a lot to do with attitude. So the thing that was interesting, right, is because making our cases for players, a lot of the time was not down to ability. It was more down to character, like the type of personality and where they are on the pitch, and how much that contributes to a good dynamic and where. So like someone that is extremely combative or aggressive, it's like, cool, let's have this person there, because in that part of the pitch and the type of team we're going to play against, we need that kind of reaction to what will be like an onslaught of just attack, for example. That could happen. So this is why this person should be there.
It's like going to war, bro. This is psychological warfare, man.
But yeah, man, I did not. I'm apologizing here, because that was a monologue. I did not expect to go that deep into it, but I just felt like
a very good session.
It's the
It's a heavy burden on his heart, you can tell.
But yeah, I was dejected, man, proper.
How was your week, Ashraf?
My week has been alright, to be honest. A lot of just like coming back into school, kind of getting to kind of like the flow of things, and also just kind of taking school and life, trying to put them into rhythm with one another. You know what I mean? Because like school will be school. So like just let it do its thing, and find out like what else is there on the side, and just finding time for that. That's pretty much it.
How do you do that? How do you synchronize them in that way?
Honestly, this is kind of like a metaphor that I've been playing on my mind, and I still haven't like kind of found a concrete way to explain it. But it's kind of like, say like a beat is playing, or like it's a common metaphor, like the record is playing, and it's all about like how you dance to it, or dancing to the tune of the record. But like, let's say a beat was playing, right? And it's about like, okay, the beat's gonna keep on playing, right? And you can either wait till the right time for you to step in and kind of get into the flow of things, or you can just step right in and kind of treat it like jazz. Because in jazz, like, there's no real kind of common or like identifiable rhythm, but there is one, and it's all about how you dance around it or you play around it. So it's kind of like that. So even when you think you're offbeat, quote unquote offbeat, you're still in it if you just keep on going. You'll find your way through it.
That's beautiful.
That is.
I read it. That's beautiful. I feel like metaphors, yeah. When you find a metaphor that resonates with you, you see the world differently.
Yeah.
You see the world differently. Ashraf, talk to us about school. Talk to us about your time in school. What memories come to mind? How do you reflect on your time in school?
Looking back at it now, it's probably be like just a time of like going through phases, Like if there was any time in your life you want to go through phases, or like the most number of phases in your life, it'll probably be school during that time, because you just have that time of flexibility. There's no real consequence to like if you change between being one type of person to another, and people kind of just tolerate the phases, the kind of transition you go from one phase to another. So I think it was just like that period of transition. I don't know. Was that the same for you guys?
It's so funny you say that, yeah, but I know you're gonna relate. I remember, not to say this wasn't me, because it probably was me as well from other people's perspective. But I remember school, yeah, there were some people suddenly, yeah, the first day of the new year, they come in with some new energy, man. They come with some new energy. I think they got a new bag or got a new jacket or you know what I mean, like
They start acting different. You know?
I think they watch American Gangster or something. You know what I mean, like. But yeah, man, phases.
Yeah.
I think secondary school is a crazy one, man. From 11 to 16, like that's so much formative years. Like so much change physically, like culturally, societally, everything's going on. And yeah.
Just on that note as well, because you're changing a lot as well, but so is other people, right? If you were to do like a study on like the kind of like the sociology or like the politics of it, how group dynamics just change, right? Year to year, how crazy would that be, you know? Like how would the dynamic change? Like, okay, I changed, but maybe you guys didn't change. The next year, me and you changed, but he didn't change. How does that affect the power imbalance or something? I don't know. You know, I feel like, because that's the source of all the drama in high school anyways, you know?
Yeah.
Politics, drama, same thing to me. I don't know.
I know you got some stories. You got some in the back.
I remember, yeah. Basically, in my school, yeah, there was this culture of getting people hated. And that was the term, that was a specific term used, like quoting, getting people hated. And what that meant is that if a specific group of people did not like you in my secondary school, this is like, 9 times, big up anyone from my secondary school that's watching this, by the way, then that means you were socially ostracized. And the thing that was interesting was seeing how this kind of flipped a person's world upside down. Like looking back, there may have been, I might be adding things into my memory, but I feel like there were people that left school because of this, like, or moved schools.
Wow.
Like that was the effect it would have. And looking back now, thinking about how those kind of playground dynamics informed your life so deeply, like, and you mentioned the idea of like phases and sort of maybe parents or older people kind of looking at you with a sense of mercy, kind of going like, yeah, you're kind of going through it, it's fine. But at that moment in time, it's very difficult to untangle yourself from your life. Like you don't have that perspective. So everything that's happening to you is happening at 100 miles an hour, and this is the most important thing. And I just remember thinking, I just remember seeing this idea of like being hated, you're ostracized, you're not someone that people will want to hang around with, and there are maybe people that hang around with you, but even by virtue of them hanging around with you, they're putting their name on the line. And I'm putting it in very like, I feel like I'm Game of Thrones, like very dramatic terms, but that's kind of, I'm assuming for people that went through that, that's kind of how it felt. Like, this is my life is ruined because of this person who has, for some random reason, got me hated, and now I'm hated and no one likes me and no one wants to hang around with me and I don't have any friends, so let me just move school. And that might mean moving area, and that might mean like your family having to get a new house or whatever, and like all of the kind of repercussions of that. And I think for me, one of the most interesting things about it is that the people that would abide by the idea of who is and who isn't hated, more often than not, had nothing to do with the group of people that would decide whether you're hated or not. But you would kind of go along with it because of that social force and social pressure.
This is a bit of a weird question, and I don't know how you look. I don't even know how I would answer it. But do either of you feel like you do things because of the culture?
Ooh. Yes is the answer. I'm trying to think of what though.
I'm trying to think for what culture, for which culture. Sometimes I do know I do things for like a greater kind of, it's not like a conscious decision, but I don't know what I'm doing it for.
I remember I was at a gathering not too long ago, yeah, and everyone was just sitting down, and I remember asking this question: where do you guys sit on the bus? And that to me is a very very London culturally specific secondary school days question. And there were people in the room that were like, what? Like, what's that got to do with anything? And then my brother was also in the room, so I was like, I lied, this is not a weird question. Because everyone was like, what kind of weird question is that? And I was like, bro, I beg you back me, like, this is not a weird question. And then he was like, yeah, no, it's not that weird, innit? And I feel like that makes me think about where you sit on the bus, and the significance of where you sit is tied to a culture, a subculture, but a culture nonetheless. So I think maybe when I think about, even to this day, when I think about where I sit on the bus, wherever I do or don't sit, I always kind of, even if it's just like chuckling to myself, like going, oh, okay, I'm this person now, which is tied to that, the ideas of whoever that person was at that point in time in that subculture. Even though man's a big man. But yeah. What about you?
I'm still like ruminating because I don't know if I want to let it all out. Like, I don't do anything out of my own free will. It's all environmental. I'm just an environment. But is there anything that comes to mind for you?
No, honestly, no.
Yeah.
But like, okay, if I give you an example, yeah, there are certain haircuts that you will not get because of the culture.
That's the thing. I know I do a lot of omissions because of the
Yeah,
culture.
that's true. Yeah.
There's no doubt. Like, there's certain colours or but I can't even justify it. I can't justify it. It's just like it irks me. And it irks me, man.
That's
And
hilarious.
it's so like illogical, irrational. I get it, but it's just.
It makes you think about. I don't know what's it like for you, Ashraf? Because what that makes me think about is how much of myself would I retain if all of a sudden I moved to another country and lived there. So what's it like for you having grown up in Malaysia and then coming to London? Like how much of your quote unquote Malaysian self, put very crudely, do you retain in London?
It's hard to say because, okay, I have my story, but then I also don't know what other people think. Because to you, you're just adapting, right? But like to someone else, they're seeing you through like a whole different lens. Like for example, if I was to talk to my friends back in Malaysia who knew me right after I left high school, right? For example, they have me in that static moment in time, right? And then they get to compare, but for me, I'm comparing myself to every day, you know. So it's really hard to say, but I think I don't know. It was on my mind as well in terms of like, okay, I'm here. Technically, you know, if I wanted to, I can just be a completely new person. I could like act as a totally different character. You wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it. Like you wouldn't know how much I'm faking it at all, you know. But it's all about the confidence and just like passing on. But then again, you balance that with like, okay, there's that feeling inside you, but that's not really who I am. That's not me, kind of thing. There's obviously like pros and cons to that kind of thinking, but it's also like, okay, but is this who I want to be? And I think it's like kind of balancing between those two statements. That's where you kind of don't push yourself too much, you know. Unless someone really knows that, okay, I really want to be this kind of person, then you can go all the way there. But I feel like you also have to balance it with, okay, like who are you, like who am I, like what do I really care about, your core values and principles versus who you want to be, and like, or who you want to kind of aspire to be. If that makes sense.
Who do you want to be? What kind of
I don't
person do you
know.
want to be?
I don't know. That's the thing. Like I'm still like searching. I see it in different people. I'm in that kind of process right now. Like I look at different people. Okay, like from you, I learn I want to be this. From you, I want to be this. From this guy, I want to be this. And then you collect them all, and then you see what fits with you. But like to get a complete picture, it's hard to say. I don't know. It's kind of like, because I'm looking at that book where it's kind of like a painting. And I was just thinking about like the other day where like if you sketch or like you paint as well, you don't really know, the fun of it comes when you don't really know what's coming out. But if you do it just enough, or if you trust yourself just enough and you step back, it looks pretty good, you know. You come to the point where you're like, it looks pretty good, okay, I'll take that. So it's kind of like that. That's the way I see it. But obviously some people will be like, I want to be the next Nelson Mandela, you know. I'm all for that, like that's really good. But like I feel like for other people, maybe that's a story that's not really told, where people will be like, okay, what do you want to be when you grow up? And people always expect you, I want to be the next prime minister, I want to be the next this, next that. But like, people don't really realize, or people don't really kind of accept the fact that it can be a very messy process, and it's okay, just figure it out as you go, you know. Yeah.
From one of your recent interactions with people, like in the last week, let's say, or the last month, do you have any examples of like a behavior or a character trait that you witnessed that you were like, yeah, that's something that I appreciate, that's something that I would like to incorporate into my own character?
It'd probably be just yesterday, honestly. So I was hanging out with a friend, and he's like really outgoing. He always has a smile on his face, like super extroverted. And I know I'm not that extroverted. I'm quite introverted naturally, I would say. But what he did after we hung out, like, so we hung out in a group, and what he did after we hung out was that like he kind of just like left a voice note after we hung out, and it was just like pure, like, honest, pure joy and love. Just be like, it was great hanging out, we should do this again, blah blah blah. And you could tell it was coming from a honest space, not on some like, cause I know like from someone else might sound, yo, that's kind of corny, you know? That's kind of cheesy, bro. Like leave it. But to me, I thought like, wow, that's actually wholesome. Cause I was sitting down in my bed, I'm like, wow, you know, like sometimes you take the people that you know for granted, you know, like a lot of people might not have these kind of people, like a person like him in their lives. You know, they might have other people around them who never says like any positive and loving words to them, you know, and that's like a sad reality for some people. And you know, I just looked at him and like, wow, that's like, even with that in mind, like, okay, I know some people might say, oh, you're acting like kind of corny or cheesy, but like thinking again, okay, but like when at the end of the day, you know, it's something that people actually do appreciate. So probably something like that, you know, just being unapologetically not wholesome, but just like, you know, true. But you know, just like doing what you think is like will make the other person feel good, and like what is good and right, and you know, not caring what other people think about it, and just doing that.
This is kind of, I feel, related, but slightly different topic. So we were all on the tube on the way to Route 25 today, and I was speaking to Saadadeen about traveling to work. So hopefully we're going to be working soon, God willing, like in the future. And one thing that we spoke about, we were speaking about the morning commute. Like if you're wherever you, especially if you work in London, doesn't really matter where. The morning commute to work on the tube can be very depressing, and it can be very, I don't know. It's just obviously depends on the nature of work that you do, but it can feel very robotic, very static, very stale, right? And one thing that we were talking about, me and Saadadeen, is just that one of the benefits of like biking it to work, or like going like using like cycling to work as a way to kind of reassert your
individuality,
as a way to resist all the structures, and like, as a way to like exercise agency, exercise autonomy, exercise whatever. Like, what small acts do you guys do on a day-to-day basis? Doesn't need to be day-to-day, whatever. Like that you feel fit into that category of small acts of resistance. I think that's the word I'm looking for, resistance. Anything come to mind?
Resistance to what?
Resistance is an interesting word. It reminds me of Terminator. The resistance.
There's something. Okay, let me put it like this. There's something you don't like. You can't really change it, but you're gonna do something for yourself to acknowledge that you don't like it.
I see what you mean. Oh.
So you're not gonna do exactly what they're asking you to do, even though you're actually doing what they're saying. What comes to that?
You kind of, it's like a mini rebellion for yourself.
Yeah, mini rebellion.
Hey, Drew, have you all seen that picture of the people doing the Nazi salute, and there's one person who doesn't have their hand up.
Yes. What, like you're talking about Nazi Germany? Like,
Yeah. I mean, this is a much lower stakes version of that, but
that's where you go with that.
it makes me think about the idea of resistance. It just conjures up those kinds of images.
I have two, but like these, they're definitely not like a publicly charged rebellion. No. But over here, to me, it would be smiling around, walking around with a smile, because everyone's always got like a mean face. They always got something to do. I'm always busy, so like when you just walk, or like obviously when you have the choice to smile or not smile. You know, like you kind of like you said, if you don't do it, it's completely fine. No one's gonna think twice about it, right? But if you do, you see someone walk around with a smile, it's like, oh, okay. And to me, it's kind of like a resistance against like what you're expected to be, or like the lifestyle that's expected, especially when you live in such a bustling city. You know, it's like kind of defying that. Like, you know, you can just take time off. You can still be happy and live in the city, kind of thing. You know, I don't know, but like definitely that. You know, because you also makes yourself stand out, you know, especially when you're such a large group. When you bring attention to yourself, you also bring a danger, you know. So the kind of like the way to go is to just kind of conform, keep yourself safe, just conform. So even by smiling, you're not just resisting against that kind of lifestyle, but you're also resisting against, like, you know, the threat of it all, or whatever threat that may come. You know, just putting yourself out there it's kind of like an act of courage as well. So you're kind of resisting against the conformity. I don't know, which is ironic in a very individualistic society and city. That's one thing.
So what was the second?
The second one I haven't thought out. It just came out of my mind. Like the first thing that came out of my mind was prayer. I don't know why, because I was thinking about like, again, the lifestyle, I guess. But it's just about like you're expected to always be constantly at something, or it's like a different rhythm to your life. The fact that you are taking breaks at these times and you're saying like, no, I'm gonna do this. It's kind of like nope, sorry. Like I know this is how the world kind of like works, but like I'm taking my time off, whether you like it or not. I'm taking my 5 minutes of my life and at these moments, take it or leave it, kind of thing. What's something that you do? I don't think you mentioned.
Well, where do I start?
Just being myself.
Listen, you see my MP? He knows me, mate. He knows from me.
My MP will be hearing about this.
I mean, there's something that comes to mind, like when people, I think, when people ask you what your name is and just pronouncing it in a way that you feel like it should be pronounced based on like the way that your parents have pronounced it, and the name you were given, basically. I think that's one that comes to mind. Sorry. So that's one that comes to mind. Just I think that asserting yourself, like you said, and just knowing, asserting yourself, basically.
What to you? What would be like? What is the power behind kind of standing by your name? Like, I want my name pronounced like this.
Yeah.
Like, what is the significance to you? What do you think is the significance?
For me, I think it's because in recent years I've reflected more on the meaning of the name, like where the name has come from, from my faith and like the tradition and like who I was named after, and like the honor and the sense of pride I have of having such a name, and I think in a lot of ways it's not just for me, it's also for other people, because that the person that I was, the name after the prophet, like in the religion that I follow, it's something that's it's kind of educational for people to be aware of the way that this is pronounced, and for them to do their own inquiries into who the person was. And I think it's definitely for me first, do you know what I mean, in the sense of like I'm proud, and it's like why shouldn't I say the way that my name is pronounced? But also at second tier, I do think it's educational, and I'm happy to introduce the name to a lot of people for the first time. It's kind of a pleasure of mine. That's the way I think about it.
Yeah, it makes me think about the idea of having faith in other people, like what you mentioned, which is the idea that you have faith in others, that they would, you just assume good of them, that they would want to pronounce my name in the way that I would want them to pronounce my name. If you don't do that, you kind of cut off from them a favor that they probably would have want to have done for you. If you just assume that, my name is quite complicated, so they probably don't want to, and it's just more convenient for them, and you make all these assumptions in your head. It's like sometimes we can have a bit more faith in others and just assume that people just want to do, especially when it comes to things like names, like what would create the most cohesive environment.
Yeah, I think like that's first principle thinking, man. Create a cohesive environment. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Your name is an important possession of yours, just like any other property that you own, even though it's intangible. If you came into my house, you would, and if you respected me, you would treat my house with respect. Like I think you can think about it in those terms.
Yeah.
What's that film? That thing?
Freedom Writers.
Yeah.
Freedom
You know
Writers.
that one song? Hope.
No, that's Coach Carter, bro. Oh my days. And then we've got the right, like, this guy went to school and did it, and then one of them didn't make it or something. And you're like, no way. And it's like at the end of the year, it's like, not my guy, Worm. His name was.
Because I'm always so invested. I'm like,
what happened? Yeah.
Because does it not freeze as he's taking a shot or something? Yeah, that was. Have you seen Coach Carter, Ashraf?
Yeah.
That is such a good film. Oh my days.
It's one of those movies, I put Coach Carter like alongside like Good Will Hunting, like those kind of movies,
Bro. Bro! Man, I've been telling bare people about Good Will Hunting, man. It's a deep film.
I Google sometimes like movies like Good Will Hunting, and it's not it.
You're like, I want this.
No.
I want this, but something I see.
Yeah. I just want that. I just want that.
And then sometimes they show you the suggested. You're like, that is
No,
nothing to
it's
do.
not
with
it.
That's not.
No.
Tell us about one of the moments in your life that have shaped who you are the most.
Probably that moment where I dropped out of high school, but not because I couldn't do school, but because my circumstances didn't allow me, you know. Because that moment where like you're in school for like the first 20 more so years of your life, especially at college, like I think it's like 18 years, right? 18, 17 years. So school is all you know. And so when you kind of have to leave that world for a bit, you're kind of tossed into a different world where it's just like, okay, what do I do now? Who am I? Or like, why am I here, kind of thing. You get thrown into all these kind of questions that you kind of have to face. And so that was like a really pivotal moment in the way I saw the world, but also the way I saw myself. Just because by virtue of the way that they reflected each other, you know. And so that change of environment, but also that change in kind of thinking about where I'm going and where I am, that really changed. Because like in school, you kind of set down the stream, you know, or you see things down the stream or a certain path, and it's about following it, you know, and how fast you go down that path, you know. But like from that moment on, then I realized that, you know, there's like you can go beyond these walls, kind of thing. I mean, I think if I were to like pick like a mantra or like a saying that I told myself back then, was kind of like learning or education is beyond the walls of the classroom, you know. So like I don't have to be in school or classroom to still, you know, to still be educated or have an education or still learn. Like just because you're not inside the classroom doesn't mean you stop learning, you know. You just like, oh, is that it? You know, now that you step out of classroom, now that you graduate, is that it? Is that it to your life? Do you stop learning then? You've mastered everything, you know. So that was like a big like aha moment to me, and I just took that concept and applied it to everyone else, to every other part of my life, you know. Like it doesn't always necessarily have to start and end at a certain place. It definitely helps, but it doesn't necessarily have to.
What are your sources of learning?
Sources of learning.
Like, you don't have to just learn at school. So where do you learn now that maybe you didn't learn from
I think
previously?
like a big part, I think, or like a way I see it is that actually comes from what my English teacher told me, and I was like seeing everything as a text, you know. So like, you know, movies, you know, speeches, books, obviously, but even music and everything else, even people, you can read people like a text. The same way you would read a book, you could probably read a person in the same way, or you could probably read a room in the same way. So kind of taking that idea and extrapolating from that, it's kind of like, okay, I can, you know, if I needed to learn a concept, I don't know, something like game theory or something, I don't know, just a really trash example, I could probably learn it. I could learn it from a book and it would probably tell me something, but I could probably watch a video as well, or I could watch a movie and then see there's something in there that can kind of like consolidate my understanding, or go to a cafe or go to a restaurant and see game theory in action, you know. Like I can learn in different ways. You can learn in different ways, and it's all about like absorbing everything around you and seeing it as kind of like a text for you to analyze and digest and learn from, you know.
How do you read? Like when you read, like what do you do? Like do you read quickly and just try to take the main thing from the line, or like do you read every word judiciously and make sure you don't miss a bit?
I think my default is like I read like word by word, but I realize like it's not really efficient. Like it's better to just like skim through, and it's better not to like use your voice or like read with your voice or something. Oh no, it's like you're not supposed to actually try to pronounce the word or pretend like you're gonna say it. It's all about like reading it and then just like letting a different kind of voice read it for you, kind of thing. But I think definitely like my default is like reading it as if I was gonna say it, just because I don't want to miss anything, you know. Which is like a contrast to like academic reading, which is like blah 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 blah. Okay, what's your conclusion?
Yeah,
you know.
Big facts. Yeah, I feel like the word of academia has just made me write short sentences, bro.
Yeah. True.
I came in after history A level, like, bro, check out this complex sentence. I beg you check it out for me. Check it. Comments. maybe a bracket.
Yeah.
But now it's like none of that. None of that. Quick, simple, rap. I get it. I get it.
No, I was just gonna say, like, when it comes to academic, right, you just wanna. It's kind of like you go through a journey yourself, where it's like you go, like, you want to explain it so much, you want to be really elaborate, and then after a while you just get tired and like you're frustrated and just like, okay, this is what I meant. All right, take it or leave it.
100%. Yeah, and you know your point about always learning. One thing I noticed you do, like, not one thing I noticed that you did earlier today, when Saduddin asked you, how do you say professional in Malaysian or Malay, you got your phone out and you checked, and I was like, I love people that do that, man. I love that. That's a trait that I don't do, but I wish I want to try to do more often, because a few other people I know do that as well. Like, when they don't know something, they'll get their phone out and they'll go check right now because they're thirsty for knowledge. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? It leaves them with a sense of frustration if they don't try to address that pinpoint or that pain point, whatever. So yeah, I just thought that you've exemplified it. You guys are real deal. You chatting facts. You know what I mean?
You walk the walk.
Cool. I've got a question that our previous guest has asked. So we're adding a new feature to the podcast where every guest will ask a future guest a question. So the question that our previous guest wants me to ask you is, when was the last time you felt excited, and what caused that excitement?
That's a tough word. I had to think a bit about, like, what does being excited mean. I've been happy, or like I've been intrigued or interested in something, but to be excited, what does it mean to be excited? You know, like, is it a mixture of like an energy? Is it a burst of energy mixed with joy, mixed with a bit of curiosity? I feel that the most recent one will probably be this podcast, because it's kind of like all of that, like the joy of like meeting with you guys and having that conversation, right? But also mixed with that kind of like element of surprise and like kind of like interest, not suspicion, but like, okay, like, what's gonna happen? I don't know what the future's gonna hold, and that kind of builds into like a excitement, you know, kind of like it's like a thrill or like an adrenaline that you don't really get from knowing. Because I can be happy about getting ice cream because I know what I'm gonna get out of it. But when you're excited about something, you're like, okay, I actually don't know, but I don't know what's gonna happen here. But because I don't know what's gonna happen, I'm actually more excited about it. You know, it's probably that.
That was the right answer.
Guess we got some more points, mate.
How about you guys? Like, what's like
you go first, Roger.
the most recent moment where you get excited?
So I mentioned the match earlier. It was probably the build up to that, because it was just such a, like, this is the thing that we've been building up for.
I feel like all of these emotions overlap, so it's difficult to discern what is excitement, what is anxiety, what is fear, what is courage. I don't know, courage, or like all of these things overlap. So, but for me, I would say that excitement is just, I feel like it's an innate part of the human experience. And what I think is more interesting is how you mentioned, like, with regards to the football match, and like, in retrospect, was it good? Was it healthy? Well, I don't know if healthy is a bit of a strong word, but was it the right thing for me to be so excited about an event that led to an outcome where I was less than positive? I think, and then you mentioned the word strategic. I thought, bro, the word really stood out to me. I was like, bro, like, why do we think in that way? Like, why is it good to be strategic? And I think I was speaking to one of my friends recently, yeah, and they love critical thinking. Innit? They live for it. They live for it. Critical thinking. But critical behind every word. We have to be critical. And they were trying to flip my mind. They were like, oh, everything. We gotta be critical, bro. Like, we gotta be critical. And there's definitely a point there, man. There's definitely a point there, like, in the sense of, why do we want to be strategic with our energy management? Like, why?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, why do you think? Because I know I do. Right now, I would say, yeah, I want to be strategic with my energy management.
It's okay. So it's underpinned by a belief that there is an optimum way to live life. And I think if you don't have that underpinning belief, then it's Yeah, okay. I'm gonna keep going with that. I can add caveats, but I'm not going to, because this is gonna get confusing. And I think if you don't have that, then I think it's right. Like, why don't you, like, we could live for the moment, or embrace the full human experience, and by you're denying yourself like the full spectrum of human experience if you kind of live too strategically and it's a bit too robotic. But because of that underpinning belief, I always think to myself, this kind of thing is going to happen again. It's going to replicate itself again. It might not look exactly the same, but by and large, like from a macro point, it's going to be the same things. So would I do the same? Would I approach it in the same way? And I don't think I would. Because, okay, so here it is, yeah. In the lead up, it's not necessarily, I don't think it's healthy to be too excited about an event. Like, I don't think it does anything for you, because in the same way of like being really excited to get to university, and then you get to university, all of the thing is just the thing. And like the way you frame it is got a lot to do. The way you frame it is going to come crashing down when you experience the reality of it, or you will continue framing it in a way that is not healthy while you experience it. So you can continue romanticizing things, even though when you're experiencing it, it is not a thing to be romanticized, or you get the harsh confrontation of the thing being not worth being romanticized, and then you get brought crashing down. But this is, do you know what? Yeah, as I'm saying this, yeah, I'm just a man saying, as I'm saying this, I'm just thinking, bro, this guy must have got smoked on the weekend. This guy got smoked. Who hurt you?
Big man.
Who hurt you? Now, honestly, yeah.
That's it. I
said rematch them. I want a rematch. Imagine next week I win. Do you know what, guys? Yeah. Excitement is about excitement. Life is all about.
Life equals excitement.
But no, even if we won, I don't care.
You know what? Yeah, you heard of Marcus Aurelius. That's my dog. That's bro.
Honestly, guys, go out and get his book.
Meditate.
Oh, my cheeks are hurting, bro.
Suleiman and I really enjoy listening to your messages and reflections, so do keep them coming in. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, do rate us 5 stars, because it really helps get the word out there. And if you enjoyed this conversation, share it with someone you think might also enjoy it. Take care.